If you told me a few years ago that I'd have a secret so heavy it would sit in the pit of my stomach every single day, I would have laughed and told you I wasn't that kind of person. I always believed in loyalty, honesty, and doing the right thing. Those were the values I was raised with. And yet, here I am, telling strangers on the internet about a version of myself I never imagined could exist. Maybe that's why I'm writing this now. Because I can't tell anyone else. I can't tell my friends. I can't tell my family. And I sure as hell can't tell the person sleeping next to me right now. Back then, my life was simple. I had everything lined up the way people dream of. A stable job that paid the bills and gave me some sense of purpose. A fiancé who adored me, kind, supportive, the kind of person you bring home to your parents and feel proud about. We were planning our wedding, and everyone said we were goals. I believed it too most of the time. I wasn't unhappy. That's the part one struggle with the most when I look back. There was no big fight, no deal breaker, no betrayal from their side. I wasn't neglected. I wasn't unloved. So why wasn't it enough? I think about that question more than I'd like to admit. Maybe it was me. Maybe it was something broken inside me that craved attention in a way that even the most loving partner couldn't fill. Or maybe it was just curiosity. The kind you don't think will ever matter until it does. Life felt safe, predictable. Wake up, go to work, text the same good morning messages, share weekend plans, repeat. It sounds perfect on paper, doesn't it? But there was this undercurrent I never really acknowledged. A quiet, restless part of me that wanted a spark. Something unexpected. At the time, I didn't even realize that's what I was feeling. I told myself I was happy, and in so many ways I was. But happiness and excitement aren't always the same thing. Everything started on an ordinary Tuesday. Nothing cinematic, no dramatic music playing in the background. Just another day at work. We had this big project coming up, and the company brought in a consultant to help us through some of the technical stuff. That's how I met him. I'll call him D for now. I didn't notice anything special about him at first. He was just another face in a sea of people in suits. Confident but not cocky. Friendly but professional. The kind of guy who makes everyone feel comfortable without trying too hard. Our first real conversation wasn't even memorable. It was about some report we were both working on. But then there was another conversation. And another. Before I knew it, we were sitting in the break room talking about music, movies, stupid little things that didn't matter. He made me laugh in a way I hadn't laughed in a while. Not because my fiancé didn't make me laugh, but because this was new. Different. And that difference felt intoxicating in a way I couldn't explain. I didn't think much of it at first. People connect at work all the time, right? Harmless conversations, casual jokes. It's normal. That's what I told myself. I told myself it was nothing. But then the texts started. At first, they were strictly professional. Updates on deadlines, clarifications about meetings. Then came the emojis, the little jokes, the hope your day's going well messages. That's where the lines started to blur, though I didn't admit it then. I remember the first time I felt that rush of guilt. It was a Sunday night, and my fiancé was sitting next to me on the couch, scrolling through their phone, and I got a message from D. Just something simple. Can't wait to crush this deadline tomorrow. You got this. It wasn't romantic, not even close. But I smiled in a way I shouldn't have. I caught myself, looked over at the person who loved me unconditionally, and thought, why does this feel so good? Could have stopped then. Should have stopped then. But I didn't. Over the next few weeks, I found myself looking forward to work more than usual. Not for the job, not for the meetings, but for the chance to see him. To have those 5-minute conversations that left me thinking about him long after I'd gone home. That's how it begins, isn't it? Not with a decision, not with a plan, but with a series of small, seemingly harmless choices. I started noticing everything about him. His laugh, the way he focused when he worked, even the way he held his coffee cup. Stupid little details that shouldn't have mattered, but they did. And in the middle of all that, life with my fiancé stayed the same. Steady. Predictable. We still had date nights. We still laughed. But there was a part of me that was slowly pulling away. even if no one else could see it. There was one moment I can't forget. A meeting ran late, and most people had left for the day. It was just the two of us in the conference room, packing up our stuff. He made some joke about how exhausted we both looked, and I laughed, really laughed. Then there was this pause. This tiny, charged silence where we just looked at each other. Nothing happened, but something shifted. Felt it. And I think he did too. That night, lying in bed next to my fiancé, I stared at the ceiling and told myself I was imagining it, that I was reading too much into nothing. But deep down I knew better. I knew a line had been drawn, and I was already standing too close to it. The worst part. A small part of me wanted to cross it. I kept telling myself it was harmless. That's the phrase I leaned on like a lifeline. Harmless. People talk to coworkers all the time. People joke, share memes, have conversations that mean nothing. That's what I told myself every time his name popped up on my phone, every time I smiled without meaning to. I believed that lie until I couldn't anymore. Started getting personal. The work updates became mixed with little check-ins. How's your day going? Turned into rough morning, want to vent. I didn't even realize how much I craved those messages until they became the first thing I looked for when I woke up. My fiancé's good morning texts used to make me feel warm inside. Now they felt routine, like brushing my teeth or making coffee. His messages, though, they spark something. That should have been my warning sign, but I ignored it. One night we stayed late again. Everyone else had left, and I should have too, but I didn't. I stayed because he stayed, and neither of us acknowledged it out loud. We sat there, working in silence, and I could feel this weight building between us. That kind of silence isn't empty, it's loaded. I kept my eyes on my laptop, pretending to be focused, but every sense in my body was tuned to him. When he finally spoke, it wasn't about work. It was about life. He asked me if I was happy, just like that, out of nowhere. I laughed it off at first, said something vague like, "Of course." But he didn't look convinced. He said, "You ever feel like you're just going through the motions?" My throat went dry because that was exactly how I'd been feeling, but I didn't admit it. Not fully. I said something like, "Sometimes, yeah." That was all it took. The conversation spilled open from there. Dreams, regrets, the things we didn't tell other people. I went home that night and couldn't stop thinking about what I'd said, and what I hadn't said. My fiancé was waiting for me, smiling, asking how my day was, and I lied without even blinking. That scared me more than anything. How easy it was. The next day, he texted me first thing in the morning. "Still thinking about last night's talk. You're easy to open up to." I stared at that message for what felt like an hour. I knew what it meant. I knew what it could lead to. And instead of shutting it down, I responded. Said, "Same. Guess it's nice having someone who gets it." That was the moment everything changed, though I didn't realize how far it would go. We started sharing more than we should have. Stories we never told anyone else. Complaints about life, fears about the future. And then came the compliments. Subtle at first. "You're really good at this," during a meeting, or "You always make me laugh." Then one day he said, "You have this energy about you, like you light up a room." I felt my stomach flip, and I hated how much I loved hearing it. My fiancé told me I was beautiful all the time, but this felt different. Felt like being seen for the first time in years. I wish I could say I fought harder against it. That I set boundaries, pulled away. But I didn't. I leaned in. I wanted more. Every time my phone buzzed, I hoped it was him. Every time I saw his name, my heart raced like I was doing something forbidden, which I was. The first time we touched, it wasn't planned. We were leaving a meeting, walking down the hall, and he reached out to brush something off my sleeve. Just a small gesture, something that could have meant nothing, but when his fingers grazed my arm, it felt like a spark shot through me. I caught his eyes, and for a second, everything around us disappeared. That moment replayed in my head all night like a scene I couldn't fast forward. It didn't take long after that. We arranged to grab a drink after work, to celebrate finishing the project. That's what I told myself. That's what I told him. Harmless drink. I even texted my fiancé, said I'd be home late because of work stuff. And then I walked into that bar knowing damn well what I was walking into. The conversation flowed like it always did. Effortless, natural. We laughed, we shared stories, but underneath it all was this tension that neither of us acknowledged out loud. Until we did. I don't even remember who leaned in first. Maybe it was me. Maybe it was him. But suddenly his lips were on mine, and every thought in my head went silent. No guilt, no fear. Just heat. It was wrong and it felt incredible. After that, everything blurred. I'm not going to go into graphic details, that's not the point. What matters is that once that line was crossed, there was no going back. On the way home, reality hit like a punch to the gut. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel, my heart pounding so hard I thought I'd be sick. I kept thinking about my fiancé, kind, trusting, waiting for me at home, and I wanted to scream at myself. When I walked through the door, they smiled like nothing had changed. But everything had. I hugged them and it felt like lying. I showered longer than usual, like hot water could wash off what I'd done. Didn't. That night I barely slept. Guilt gnawed at me, but underneath it was something else. Something I didn't want to admit. Desire. Because as much as I hated myself, a part of me wanted to do it again. I woke up the next morning feeling like two different people. One was the version everyone knew. The loyal partner, the reliable friend, the person planning a wedding and a future. The other was this stranger who had crossed a line they swore they'd never even approach. I kept asking myself, how did this happen? How did I let it happen? But the truth was, I knew exactly how. Because deep down, I didn't regret it the way I thought I should. I expected the guilt to crush me, to stop me from ever wanting more. Instead, the memory of his lips, the way he looked at me, it lingered like a shadow I didn't want to shake. That scared me almost as much as the act itself. Because if one mistake didn't destroy me, what would stop me from making another? The next time I saw him, I told myself I'd keep it professional. Cold even. I had to draw a line before I ruined my entire life. But the moment our eyes met, all those promises dissolved. He didn't even have to say anything. The look was enough. It wasn't just attraction, it was complicity. We both knew what we'd done, and we both knew it wasn't over. That day, every interaction felt electric. A glance across the table during a meeting, a brush of his hand when passing papers. It was all amplified, dangerous. I hated how much I wanted it. I hated that wanting it felt so much stronger than my resolve. And when my phone buzzed that night with his name and the words, "Can't stop thinking about you," I didn't ignore it. I typed back. Same. That was the moment I surrendered completely, even if I didn't say it out loud. What followed wasn't a one-time slip. It became a pattern, a rhythm. Late-night messages, excuses to stay longer at work, quick drinks that never ended quickly. I became an expert at lying, telling my fiancé I was stuck in meetings, that traffic was bad, that I was tired from work. Every excuse rolled off my tongue like second nature. That scared me more than anything. How easy it became. How natural. With every lie, a piece of me cracked, but I kept going. Because as much as I hated myself, I craved what I had with him. It wasn't just physical, it was emotional. He made me feel alive in a way I hadn't felt in years. Like I wasn't just someone's partner, someone's future spouse. I was someone's obsession. And I let that intoxicate me. But living two lives comes at a cost. The anxiety was constant, gnawing at me like a parasite. Every time my phone buzzed near my fiancé, I felt my heart stop. Every time they asked, "How was your day?" I smiled and lied, and the weight of those lies piled higher and higher until I could barely breathe. There were close calls. Once, my fiancé noticed a notification pop up on my phone. A joke from him, harmless to anyone who didn't know the context. They laughed and said, "You two talk a lot, huh?" I laughed too, maybe too quickly, and brushed it off. But inside I was spiraling. Thought, this is it. This is where it all blows up. But it didn't. They trusted me completely. That trust should have been my lifeline, my reason to stop. Instead, it became a shield I hid behind. The worst part was how good things were at home. My fiancé wasn't distant. They weren't neglectful. If anything, they were more loving than ever. Planning dates, talking about the wedding, dreaming out loud about our future. Every word was a knife twisting in my gut. I wanted to be happy with them, and a part of me still was. But another part, the part that had tasted this secret life, couldn't let go. There were moments when reality punched through. Lying in bed next to them after coming back from his place, hearing them say, "I love you," and feeling like the worst human alive. I'd whisper it back, and the words felt hollow on my tongue. Because if I truly loved them, would I be doing this? That question haunted me every single day, but it never stopped me. I started noticing changes in myself. I was jumpier, more guarded. Checking my phone constantly, deleting messages, erasing any trace of him like some desperate criminal. Sometimes I'd catch myself staring at my fiancé, wondering how much longer I could keep this up before everything collapsed. The answer was always the same. Not forever. Secrets like this don't stay buried. They rot and fester until they explode. One night, after another stolen moment with him, I came home and found my fiancé asleep on the couch, wedding planning binder open, pen still in hand. They'd fallen asleep dreaming about a life with me, while I was out living a lie. That sight broke something in me. I stood there, staring at the person who trusted me with their whole heart, and I felt like the lowest form of life. I thought about confessing right then, just blurting it out, ripping the bandage off. But what would that do? It wouldn't fix anything. It would destroy them, destroy us, and for what? For a mistake I couldn't undo. So I stayed silent. I kissed their forehead, covered them with a blanket, and went to bed feeling like a fraud. But even then, even in that moment of crushing guilt, part of me knew I wasn't done. That's the ugliest truth of all. The double life continued, each day heavier than the last. Every time we said, "I can't do this anymore," we ended up right back where we started. Because it wasn't just lust, it was addiction. And like any addiction, it consumed everything in its path. Time, energy, morality, sanity. I don't know what scared me more, the thought of getting caught or the thought of it ending. Both felt like disasters waiting to happen. I was stuck in a loop, spinning faster and faster, knowing it couldn't last forever, but unable to stop. And then came the moment that changed everything. Not a confession, not a confrontation, but something even harder. A choice I couldn't avoid anymore. I knew it couldn't last. Every time I looked at my fiancé, the weight of what I'd done pressed down harder. They were planning our wedding like it was the happiest time of their life, while I was drowning in secrets. Every conversation about flowers or venues felt like a lie I couldn't stop telling. And the worst part, I still couldn't walk away from him. We both knew the clock was ticking. The wedding date was approaching, and our stolen moments were getting riskier. He asked me once if I'd ever consider leaving. I didn't even let him finish the question. Well, that was never the plan. Whatever this was, it existed in a bubble, and I was determined to keep it that way. Except bubbles burst. The final time we were together, it wasn't dramatic. No big fight, no messy tears. Just quiet acceptance. He said, "You're not mine and you never will be." I didn't argue because he was right. I wasn't his. I belonged to someone else, even if I hadn't acted like it. We sat there in silence for a long time before I finally said, "This has to stop." My voice cracked, but I meant it, or at least I wanted to. Walking away felt like tearing off a limb. I deleted his number, blocked his profile, erased every photo, every message. It was like burning evidence of a crime, but the crime still lived in my memory, and there was no way to delete that. That night, I cried in the shower until the water ran cold, but when my fiancé asked what was wrong, I smiled and said, "Just stressed about the wedding." They believed me. Course they did. They always believed me. The wedding day came faster than I expected. Everyone says it's supposed to be the happiest day of your life, and maybe for them it was. For me, it was the heaviest. I stood there in front of the person who loved me more than anyone else ever had, saying vows I knew I didn't deserve to speak. I promised forever while carrying a secret that could shatter everything in an instant. And yet, when I looked into their eyes, I felt something real. I loved them. That was the hardest truth to swallow, that love and betrayal can exist in the same heart. People assume affairs happen because something is missing at home. That wasn't true for me. My fiancé gave me everything. The problem wasn't them, it was me. I wanted more even when I had enough. And that's a truth I can never escape. The years since have been complicated. On the surface, life is good. We have a home, shared routines, inside jokes that still make us laugh. But underneath it all is this silence, this buried truth I carry alone. Every anniversary, every kiss goodnight, every I love you whispered in the dark, it all comes with a sting. A reminder that I'm not the person they think I am. Sometimes I wonder if they know. Not because of anything they've said, but because sometimes they look at me a certain way, like they're searching for something. Maybe that's just my guilt projecting, or maybe they sense it, the shadow hanging over us. But they've never asked, and I've never confessed. I've thought about telling them. So many times I've rehearsed the words in my head. How do you even begin? I betrayed you before we even said I do. How do you say that without destroying everything? Don't. That's why I never have. The truth wouldn't set anyone free. It would burn everything to the ground. And for what? To make myself feel better. That's not worth the wreckage it would leave behind. People like to believe they'd always want the truth, but they don't think about what that truth would do. My truth would break a person who's done nothing but love me. And I can't do that to them, even if it means living with this guilt for the rest of my life. So I keep the secret. Smile. Play my role. I tell myself that what matters is now. That I'm faithful now, that I've learned, that I'll never cross that line again. Most days I believe it. Other days the memory sneaks back in. His voice, his touch, the way he made me feel alive in a way I haven't felt since. It hits me like a ghost, and I hate that part of me still aches for something that almost ruined me. I think about him sometimes. Where he is, if he's happy, if he ever thinks of me. I don't reach out. I never will. That chapter is closed, sealed, and buried. But buried things have weight, and I feel it every single day. It sits on my chest in quiet moments, like when my spouse laughs at something silly I say. And I think if they knew, they'd never look at me the same way again. I don't know if that makes me a horrible person or just a deeply flawed one. Maybe both. I tell myself I'm better now. That the life I have is worth protecting at all costs. And it is. I love them. Choose them. Every day I choose them. But love doesn't erase the past. It just buries it under layers of smiles and small talk and shared memories that don't include the one secret big enough to destroy it all. Sometimes I imagine what would happen if it ever came out. Would they leave? Would they hate me? Would they wonder if anything we built was real? I can't bear those answers, so I keep my mouth shut and my secret safe. It's the only way to live with what I've done. So here I am, years later, writing this to strangers because I can't say it to anyone else. Maybe that's my penance, to carry this truth in silence. I don't know if that makes me strong or cowardly. All I know is that when they say, I love you, I say it back and I mean it with everything I have left. I just wish it was enough to erase what I did. But it never will be. And that's the part I'll live with until the day I die.